So really great to be with New York again, just having been there last week for the Left Forum, which was really wonderful. And it's always an honor to be talking with the New York Green Party, because you have been such an inspiration for the whole national party, for the Massachusetts party, for my campaign, and for me personally. I think it's no secret to anybody that we sort of take what you do and plagiarize it and promote it shamelessly. And thank you for, leading the charge, New York. Let's see. Hold on. Okay. So really great to be talking, and I would love to tell you how things are shaping up in the campaign. It's really it's a perfect storm. The social movements are going strong for democracy and justice across the nation, across the world, really, and people are demanding an America and a world that works for all of us, and rejecting this notion that we're in a recovery when in fact we're in an emergency. And we've seen, that 75% of the jobs coming online now are low wage and insecure, and the employment numbers are going down. I should say the unemployment numbers are going down. People are very much struggling with debt, with the skyrocketing cost of education, with healthcare. The usual. We are in an economic crisis for most of the American public, and the disparities continue to be absolutely disabling. We're in an incredible moment of sort of revelation of the racist underpinnings of our police system, our judicial system, and our economy. The video technology has really laid bare a basic universe of brutality, which has never really gone away, which is really part of the legacy of slavery, of Jim Crow, and now it's there for everyone to see on YouTube, in the slaughter of Eric Garner, of Trayvon Martin, for that matter, and Freddie Gray and others who've really been tragically struck down. We're witnessing the really horrific details of that up close and personal, and that has given rise to this flourishing movement of the Black Lives Matter campaign, which is such a moment of inspiration and truth, and a time for the communities of color to really assert their leadership, their understanding, and their vision, so that we can come to terms as a society with this legacy of racism. And they are likewise leading the charge for the real reforms we need at the local level, in our prison system, in our courts. We need really a transformation to a system of restorative justice that seeks to preempt violence and conflict before it occurs, that seeks to put resources, economic and social resources, into our communities so that they don't become hotbeds and victims of crime, that seeks to create capacity in our judicial system, including citizen review boards for our police departments. This should be a matter of routine, that the police are being governed by us as citizens and not the other way around. Likewise, we need the capacity to have standing investigators who are ready to go and don't need a special appointment, but are standing offices that can investigate all deaths and serious injuries at the hands of police. So this movement is alive and well. The immigrant rights movement is charging forward with the dreamers and the dream defenders, and people of incredible courage who are standing up to say that as citizens of the world, immigrants deserve a welcoming path to citizenship here in the United States, and that the real problem of immigration is actually a problem of U.S. policy, misguided policies that are undermining the economies and the democracies in third world countries, particularly south of the border of the U.S., and driving people as economic refugees, economic and political refugees. So that movement is an inspiration. The movement to make public higher education free and to abolish student debt is alive and well. The movement to rescue our public schools, the movement being led by families and teachers to end high-stakes testing, and kudos to New York State, especially for leading that charge nationally to dismantle this very predatory infrastructure that pretends to be educational, but high-stakes testing is not educational. It's it's a psychology system adopted from rats in a cage and applied to students in the classroom. It's entirely wrong and misguided and harmful. The movement for workers' rights and for living wages and the fight for 15, this is a very exciting movement as well, which is alive and well. I'm in Seattle right now supporting Kshama Sawant in her bid for re-election, and the Seattle's move to adopt a standard minimum wage, to make the minimum wage a living wage, is a fight that we're fighting all over the country now, and Seattle's standard should be at a minimum a national standard. And then finally, the climate battles that we're fighting from the indigenous communities in the Dakotas who have said, who are setting up their tents in the pathway of the KXL pipeline, setting up their tents, declaring them religious sites and saying that we will live here and we will die here. We're going to protect Mother Earth and our right to, to a livable climate. Our incredibly courageous indigenous brothers and sisters that are leading this fight all over the country. That movement is an inspiration. Likewise in Denton, Texas, where young people really led the charge to ban fracking, the first fracking ban, in which New York State, thanks to the heroic work of so many of you in this room in leading the fight for to ban fracking in New York State. Kudos to all of you, and a big shout out and thank you for accomplishing that. You've really done an enormous service to this movement across the nation. So these are just some of the movements that are alive and well. These are vibrant social movements. They must have a political voice, and this is the purpose of our campaign, to lift up the struggles and the voices of frontline communities and bring them into the front line of the presidential dialogue. It's actually an outrage to think that presidential dialogue should be anything but what is of vital concern to 99% of the American public. Instead, presidential races become, sort of this theater of the absurd, kind of a kabuki theater where the 1%, works puppetry and pretends to interest people, and people are not interested whatsoever. And more money than ever is pouring into that system. Our democracy is certainly beyond the breaking point right now, as well as our climate and our economy. But the wonderful thing is that the wake-up call is out there. It's gone out loud and strong. Big kudos again to the Hawkins and Jones campaign for pushing the envelope forward in New York State in the governor's race. A fabulous race, and thanks to all of you who made it. So the curtain is going up that people are not satisfied with the two-party duopoly and are hungry for change. We know that about 58% of the American public is clamoring for a third party, says that the Democrats and Republicans are not serving ordinary Americans. People stayed home in record numbers in 2014 and are voting with their feet. So when people say we would be taking votes away, that's absolutely not true. We're bringing votes back, votes that have long since left the two-party system. we're in the business of returning them to political engagement. So this campaign is an opportunity to do that. The old politics is collapsing. This is a legacy election. People couldn't be more disinterested in Hillary Clinton and Jeb Bush and their compatriots. A quick word about Bernie Sanders. For those who've been tuning into this discussion, it was a very exciting discussion at the Left Forum, as it was at the Let's Elect conference that took place about 6 weeks ago, where Margaret Flowers pushed the question early on at conference and said, how many people here are going to be supporting Bernie Sanders? In a room full of about 150 or 200 people, there were maybe a half a dozen hands went up. Now, some people may have been too intimidated to raise their hands, but the fact that they're intimidated alone, reflects a real sea change, because it didn't used to be that way, and Left Forum conferences used to be very much inside the Democratic Party camp, at least from, in the electoral sphere. And it's very exciting to see this time around that people are recognizing Bernie's campaign, in words of Bruce Dixon, as being essentially a sheepdog campaign, part of the Jesse Jackson and Dennis Kucinich tradition, which creates a feel-good moment. It speaks a certain amount of truth to power, but effectively what it does is prevent people of conscience and of integrity from moving outside of the Democratic Party. It creates the pretense that the Democratic Party is interested in doing the right thing. In fact, the DNC is very supportive of Bernie's campaign and are promoting his emails and promoting his campaign through their network, because it allows them to create the illusion of having an interesting campaign, the illusion of a debate, when in fact, at the end of these campaigns, we know what happens. They basically die a silent death, and they deprive the alternative politics from ever getting a real foothold and from building an infrastructure. So we really encourage people, when you have friends or colleagues who are supporting Bernie, to really encourage them to recognize that a dollar for Bernie is a dollar for Hillary. A vote for Bernie is essentially a vote for Hillary. Bernie has already endorsed whoever it is, whatever centrist corporate Democrat receives the nomination. He's there to turn over his infrastructure and apparatus to the Democratic Party and continue to build it as it continues lurching to the right. So we are standing tall and encouraging people, to consider that we don't have a lot of time. The clock is ticking on the climate. The clock is ticking on the next economic meltdown. The clock is ticking on the police state, which is still going strong in spite of the revisions to the Patriot Act. They're still listening in many ways. And it may not be the government that's collecting our phone calls, but the phone companies are. And I don't know how much more safer that is than it is that the government is going directly for it. So we have a lot of work to do. We have solutions that the American public is clamoring for, and that the centerpiece of our campaign continues to be the Green New Deal, which will put everyone back to work, create 20 million jobs, as it transforms the economy on an emergency basis to 100% wind, water, and sun by the year 2030. And kudos again to New York for leading the charge on that campaign for 100% by 2030. The Green New Deal will also, in one fell swoop, basically make wars for oil obsolete and essentially undermine the justification for those wars. That is, that we need the oil fields of Iraq or Iran, or that we need the routes through the Ukraine to get our hands on natural gas resources in Eastern Europe, etc. So the rationale and the driving force for so much of this militarism goes away when we have a 100% wind, water, and sun economy. And the little-known fact that I should mention briefly is that when we move to a green economy, we've also essentially taken care of our health issues. which now cost us $3 trillion a year. It's $1 trillion a year we spend on the military-industrial complex, but we're spending $3 trillion a year on the sick care system. It's not a healthcare system. It doesn't make us healthy. Our health is far worse than other industrialized countries, even though we spend twice as much money on health. The thing is, we're not promoting health. We're just so-called fighting sickness, but we don't fight it very well. We fight it with pharmaceuticals, medical procedures, which come at high cost, often with some side effects, are making us bankrupt and are not solving the essential problem. So the Green New Deal basically creates a healthy food system with fresh, sustainable, local agriculture. It creates a healthy transportation system that integrates physical activity, walking and biking, into public transportation, and that it basically cleans the air and removes pollution because there is no fuel to burn. So we know both from studies like the Jacobson study of New York State, as well as real-world experiences in Cuba.
Jill?
When their oil pipeline went down, they got healthy real quick. Yeah, okay, I think I'm running up against the clock. So let me, at that point, just say this is the opportunity of a lifetime. This is where dire necessity meets transformative possibility. I encourage you to get involved with our campaign. We are working for a 50-state ballot access campaign. We are hoping to achieve matching funds very soon after launch, which is just around the corner. I encourage you to get involved, contribute, help us start this campaign full-powered. There's a political vacuum. We have the skills and the ability to fill it right now and transform the political landscape. So please get involved, make a contribution, whatever you can afford. Once we are a full campaign, we will be hitting matching funds hard. We'd love to achieve matching funds quickly. Washington State is very close to making matching funds already, so I want to challenge New York State to beat them to it, to get on it. We have the capacity to do it. And I hope that we're going to hit the ground running here and give them a fight that they have never seen before in their lives. So hold on to your hat. Time to turn the breaking point into the tipping point and take back the peaceful, just, green future that is within our reach. Thank you, New York, for making it so.
So we just have a little bit of time, so we ask people to just pass up a couple of questions. So if I could just throw a couple out for short answers. We really appreciate you being here. We hope we have many other dialogues with you. So what do you think is the most important lesson you learned from your last campaign, and what would you do, or what are you going to do differently in 2016?
The lesson from the last campaign, I think, is that there's a rebellion in full swing, and it's our job to help organize it and lift it up. That was the lesson, and you know, I think the other lesson is that we've already won in the court of public opinion, and our job, you know, is to orchestrate that victory now, to engineer it. But engineering that victory is a far simpler task than it is to change the public's mind. History has changed the public mind. We have two public relations agents to die for. One is called the economy, and the other one is called the climate. They're conducting public relations campaigns of shock and awe that are changing lots of minds that aren't already aligned with us. So our job is to work hard and get organized. And what we are doing differently is beginning that organization by starting the campaign now. We would like to continue it by qualifying for matching funds within the next 2 to 3 weeks. So get on it. Let's hit the ground running. We are also conducting, we are involved in 2 legal court battles right now that are about to file. These are very credible and well-funded cases that we expect to go all the way, that are suing the Commission on Presidential Debates, forcing them to cease and desist from confining the presidential debates to 2 parties, and requiring that they include, ultimately, we want to require that they include all candidates who have done the work of getting on the ballot in enough states and before enough voters that we can win the election. So the terms of engagement can be completely different this time around. We need you to be involved and be a part of this from the get-go.
Great, thanks. And one last question, just quickly, if you can comment on the TPP and, you know, what's the alternative? or a green alternative to that?
Yeah, I think the alternative to the TPP, you know, the first thing is that we must stop it. It's an outrage against our democracy and everything that we hold dear, our health, workers' rights, the environment, and our ability to just simply even make laws and regulations on our own behalf. It essentially undermines that and creates an invisible global governance that's beyond anybody's reach. It's an absolute, you know, it is a Trojan horse for, you know, for a coup against democracy. The alternative to the Trans-Pacific Partnership is basically fair trade, not free corporate trade. And, you know, there's absolutely no reason why we can't. We have to stop this, you know. Number one, let's stop it. Let's stop the fast track, which is the easiest piece to stop. This shouldn't go forward, and we can move ahead from there with a more just and sustainable approach to trade and to democracy and international law and foreign relations. All of that needs to go back to the drawing board, and the Green Party is prepared to do that.
Great.
So thank you all so much.
Thanks for taking
Thank you, Gloria. Thank you for taking time. Thank you for all your work.